estudiantes. Today we're going to discuss a tool which you're undoubtedly already familiar with, which can either help you in Spanish or it can be something to get in the way of you learning Spanish and actually help you cheat, and that is Google Translate. Like I said, you've probably already used Google Translate in your classes and discovered that it is a very easy way to discover how to say something in Spanish. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about good uses of Google Translate and some that cross the line into cheating. First of all, before we ever even had the internet and people need to look up a word, what they would do is they would go to a Spanish English dictionary, they'd look up the word, they'd see what it meant, and then they'd write it down. So in that way, Google Translate can be used in much that same way, and that's a very good use of Google Translate. Let's say, for example, you want to say what's your favorite animals in Spanish, and you say mi animal favorito es oh, and then you realize you don't know how to say the word giraffe in Spanish. So go to Google Translate. Again, you can type it into the search bar, but a more robust, a site that has more information for you, you can actually go to translate.google.com like I have here, and you'll see that you have English here on the left. You can click what language you want to translate it into. Let's say you wanted to turn your English into Spanish. So I want to use the word for giraffe. Now, it is important to be able to spell the word correctly in English, or Google might not be able to tell you what it is in Spanish. So I want to say giraffe. Oh, the way you say giraffe in Spanish is jirafa. So if I'm just using it as a translation tool to help me come up with a word that I haven't heard before, I could say mi animal favorito es una jirafa. And there, I've done most of the Spanish myself. I just had to look up a single word. All right, that is a good use of Google Translate. That is perfectly acceptable, and I encourage you to do that rather than ask me or ask another teacher, how do you say this? It's very easy to to look that up yourself. All right. There's a couple problems here. There are a couple pitfalls. For example, some words have many different meanings in English. Let's take the word for party. Um, so type in the word party and fiesta. That's great. Most of you knew that the word for party is fiesta in Spanish. Let's say, for example, you weren't wanting to talk about that kind of party, but you were wanting to talk about a political party. Okay, like the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, etc. The thing is you cannot say la fiesta política or la fiesta republicana. That doesn't make any sense unless you're talking about the Republicans throwing a rave on a weekend or something like that. Okay, so what you'll need to do is you'll need to provide a little bit more context to Google Translate. So before party, I'm going to type in Republican. And you notice now Google Translate's figured out you're not trying to talk about a fiesta, you're talking about a partido. Okay, so now you know the word for a political party is not fiesta, but partido. So when you're using Google Translate to translate single words, you need to think, does that word mean more than one thing? For example, the word fly. Fly can be a verb, fly can be a noun, an insect. So different words have different meanings. The word match, that can mean something you light to set a fire. That can be an athletic competition. All right, so you need to think about those things. One other thing you do need to consider is that some words also have different meanings in different parts of the English speaking world. Let's say you're wanting to say the word for biscuit, and you type in the word biscuit, spell it correctly again, and you see what comes out as the word galleta, and you go, okay, biscuit is galleta. However, the problem is that the word biscuit actually means something else in England. So the word you got for galleta, if you take a look here, it says cookie. That's actually what it is. And one way to see did it translate correctly is to use this swap languages button. So if you click back, and it tells you galleta means cookie. Now, if you're actually talking about a buttermilk biscuit, galleta is not the word you want to use, and so you're going to need to do a little bit more digging to find out the word that you're actually wanting to use. So that's one pitfall that you need to avoid a couple of pitfalls rather, you need to avoid when you are using this as a translation tool. Now then, let's talk about some misuse of Google Translate, okay? The thing is that unless you grew up speaking Spanish, you know a lot more English than you do Spanish. All right. If you're a Spanish 1 or a Spanish 2 student, you simply are not going to be able to express yourself as clearly as you want to in Spanish. So let's copy and paste something that you might have written in English. When I graduate, I would like to open up my own business and sell prosthetic limbs to people who need them. I will make lots of money and help people at the same time. All right. Let's take a look at the translation. Let's click on Spanish and see what it says. Oh, cuando me gradúe, me gustaría abrir mi propio negocio y vender prótesis para las personas que los necesitan. Ganaré mucho dinero y ayudaré a la gente al mismo tiempo. Now, stop for a second and ask yourself, if you were a Spanish 1 student, does that sound like something that you would say naturally? Is that something that would convince a teacher that you already knew how to say? All right. There are verb forms in here that you don't even learn until Spanish 3. There are everything spelled perfectly. Actually, this is actually a very good translation of what you said in English. The problem is that in Spanish 1, Spanish 2, you don't know how to say things that sophisticatedly or eloquently. So this signals to the teacher this is not your work. All right. So that's the difference between using Google Translate to help you look up a Spanish word or to help you in Spanish. But in this case, I just copied and pasted, and Google Translate did all the Spanish for me. Your teacher will notice that. Your teacher will recognize that, and that is considered academic dishonesty. So, the teacher's going to take whatever steps that he or she normally does in the cases of cheating. All right. Even if you grew up speaking Spanish, like I said, accent marks are in place here. Everything is spelled perfectly. So unless you actually receive formal training somewhere in a Spanish-speaking country on how to speak and how to write in Spanish, this is obviously not the work of a Spanish 1 or a Spanish 2 student. So what do you do then if you want to say something in Spanish, but you don't know how to say it? All right. Google Translate is not the answer. Simplify what you're saying, first of all. Think, is there an easier way to say this? You say, I want to own a business. I want to have a business. Something like that. Again, it's going to sound a little bit babyish. It's going to sound a little bit silly, but you just simply don't have the tools in your toolbox, vocabulary wise, to say something this complex yet. You just need to accept it. Another solution, say something else. All right. There's no law saying you have to say this as your answer. Okay. You can make something up. You can just be a little bit more creative about what you're going to say. But the fact is that this is not you using Spanish. This is you having the computer do your Spanish for you. You're not learning anything, and it's academic dishonesty. So to review, you are absolutely welcome to use Google Translate to translate words or short little phrases to help you when you otherwise wouldn't know how to say it. All right. If it comes to this where you are copying and pasting entire sentences or paragraphs, that's when you're crossing the line, and that's a misuse of Google Translate. So hopefully you understand that this is how Google Translate should be used appropriately.